that's one of the great things about school PR people is we're adaptable. We take those skill sets and we apply them to the situation, and we take that strategy and we help find the answer. So that's what we're built for.
We are surrounded by content. Content shapes who we follow, how we lead, what we buy, and even what we believe. Welcome to the Content Generation Podcast, a class intercom production where we focus on the stories that come to life in schools all over the world. We highlight the students, educators, and communities who share the content that shapes our future. Welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I'm Ben. I'm joined here with Dr. Jill, and we have a great guest today. We are talking about all things NSPRA, but we're talking with the NSPRA current president, Trent Allen from San Juan Unified in California, and really exploring some of his history and background and really what he is bringing as encouragement to all of the SPRA community around the U.S. And Jill, you've spent so much time with our friends in SPRAs all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is going to be a fun one for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's been great getting to know Trent this year, especially when we sponsored the President Summit in Sacramento, his home base. So it's great to see him, at home and hosting. That was really, really great to see his leadership shine there, and it's just continued to do so this year. For me, it becomes so personal too. So, we visit so many of the SPRAs throughout the years, and like Barb Hunter, Kathy Kajigian, Nicole Kirby, you just become friends with these people because they are such excellent leaders, but they are very down to earth, and Trent fits that mold too. They all bring their own special gifts, but they all have that in common, is that they want to help the other communicators do the best for their schools and districts.
Well, I know it becomes, part of our community as we visit a lot of SPRAs and work with the state presidents, and I know. Jill, you've gotten to know so many of them, and it's fun at times to get to see them all in one space, but then also to see them in their own given environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they're able to connect on a state level and really serve so many people. One of the things I was really excited about this interview is Trent sort of breaks things down as someone who was the first one hired, right, as the communications professional in a very large school district, and then has evolved that as he's grown his team, as he got to make that first
Mm-hmm.
hire. He's really able to advise and really provide a lot of value to districts that may not be as far as along or are in different stages of growth.
Yeah, that's one of the things that NSPRA has done so well. And seriously, Barbara Hunter at the helm, and then empowering these great leaders like Trent. They're growing the state memberships, which helps grow the national memberships, which helps grow the support that they can offer. And it's making more of these jobs available because it is so important in all sizes of districts, not just our mega districts, but, districts with 3,000-4,000 kids. A lot happens. There's a lot of buildings, and a lot of communication has to take place no matter the size. So those roles are really starting to expand.
Well, Jill, I know that so often this happens, and partly I know that this happens because your office and mine share an adjoining wall. But I know that a lot of times you're receiving that text message and making a quick phone call to someone who's in a communications role, and they've got the fire this week, or they've got the thing going on. And so I know you've been that sort of steady for a lot of our friends in the communications community. But, really as a whole, we need an organization that has the structure and mentorship and all of that growth to be able to do that. And Trent's really helping to advise that. And so I'm really excited for his role and really the explosive growth that we're seeing through NSPRA. With that, love to hear from Trent Allen. Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I have been excited to get to introduce Trent Allen to our audience, but many of you know him, and you may know him also because of his role as being this year's NSPRA president. Welcome to the podcast, Trent.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, it was good to be with you at the President's Summit not that long ago in your hometown of Sacramento. Have you always lived in Sacramento?
I grew up for the most part in California. I was born in Idaho, but grew up for the most part in California, in Sacramento region as in a whole. But in Sacramento proper, probably for the last decade or so.
Awesome. So 10 plus years in Sacramento. And, some of us get to know you because of your role with NSPRA, but you also have a day job too. And I think you're there at your day job, right?
I am. I'm at San Juan Unified here, just outside of downtown Sacramento, and loving every day.
Awesome. So, a little bit of background for everybody. Trent, how did you get into school PR? Like, what was the impetus or inciting incident that sort of drug you into school PR?
I kind of stumbled into it, as many folks do, a little more direct path than some. In college, I was that comms major, uh, wanting to do journalism, but I kind of stumbled towards the public relations path. At the time, it was really about uh, tech PR, though. It was pre dot-com bubble burst.
Oh,
So everybody
sure.
was going out and getting jobs, $80,000, $90,000 a year right out of college, and that was great at the time. And I was planning to do that, but then everything kind of blew up, and there weren't any jobs. So right out of college, I went to work at Best Buy, which was
Yeah.
fantastic too. Love that.
Yeah.
But was there for a few months, and where I'd done my undergraduate work, I'd been the newspaper editor, student newspaper editor, and the head of their public relations team, who had harassed as the student newspaper editor, called me up and said, "Hey, I have a job. Why don't you come back and work for me so I can harass you now?" So that actually got me my first PR gig. But I was doing public relations in higher education,
Hmm.
and we had interns, of course, because you have a great supply right there for you. And one of our interns was going to be an English teacher, and she was looking for jobs as she was about to graduate. She came across a PIO job at a county office of education. Said, "Hey, you'd be great for this." I'm like, "Oh, schools have PR people too. Wow, who
Yeah.
knew?" And I went and kind of sat through the interview and learned a little bit more about why schools would need PR people, and have been loving it ever since. And did some time at the county office of education, and then came here to San Juan almost 20 years ago now, and
Oh,
have
wow.
been just loving it.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about San Juan Unified. How many students in your district? What does it cover?
So, 75 square miles. We have 64 schools and just about 38,000 students. If you include our charter schools that we certainly support and partner with, but don't directly run, we push that 50,000 mark. So when you look at
Wow.
those rankings of California school districts and how big they are, we are number 10 when you include all of us all together.
Mm.
So it is a large, diverse system. We are certainly diverse in many, many different ways, both geographically, economically, and just about every other way you can think of. So it's a really amazing place to kind of learn and grow, and try and figure out what you can do next to help people get to that next level. And that's why I think for the last 20 years, I've been able to say, this is home for me.
Yeah.
When I first interviewed, there was a board member who was on my interview panel, and he said, you stay with a job for 3 or 4 years and then you move on. And I remember thinking at the time, like, well, yeah, that's kind of what you do. You learn what you have to learn, you contribute what you have to contribute, and then you go on to
Mm.
the next opportunity. I mean, I was relatively young then. Um, and I don't know what my response was, but I got the job, obviously. And I was thinking, though, I'm going to be here for a few years and I'll find something else. But that has not been the case, because it has just been so dynamic and so
Mm.
challenging all the way through that this has been just a great opportunity.
Well, I think that's such an important voice for the NSPRA community too, to have someone who's really grown with their district and been able to adapt to all of that change too. So that's huge. Yeah, I didn't realize you'd been there for that long too, and sort of like seeing that sort of evolution of that district too, and obviously the changing role of California public schools too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very big change when I came to San Juan. I was working in the county office in a very different community, where public education was not seen as necessarily the star that it should be. And
Mm.
coming here to San Juan, which even at that time had a great name throughout the state, was really known for its academic reputation. It was just a very stark difference. But as we've continued to evolve what public education looks like, what it means, how it serves our communities, that has been always evolving conversation for us. So just kind of growing up with that, so to speak, has been a fantastic journey, and one that continues to develop every day. So I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're starting to, and now that you've assumed this role and been in this role for some time as the NSPRA president, you're starting to get to share with school districts all over the country about the importance of school PR, but also you're advocating for how they can be better at school PR too. So what do you tell them? Like what do you tell other school PR folks?
One of the most popular presentations I get asked to do is about small teams and small communication shops. Because in so many of our districts throughout the country and our organizations throughout the country for education, it is still a one person or two or three people working that comms team. And that's my experience. When I came to San Juan, we were actually directly serving 50,000 kids. We had 70 school
Wow.
sites, but I was the comms person. I was the comms director. There was no administrative assistant. There were no comms team, nothing. And I'm very, very fortunate to have an amazing comms team of a very healthy size. I don't like to say because people get mad at me, but it's been just amazing. And we have the great conversation when I go and talk with folks about, it is a struggle and it is hard, but there are strategies we can implement to make the most of it and to really still be those thought leaders in our communities, to really be those
Right.
strategic partners within our organizations, so that it is not that we are those tacticians. We're going to do that too because we have to do that. We have to be good at that.
Yeah.
But we need to evolve to be that strategy partner, and be seen as that strategy partner so that we can help other people practice good communication, so they can build those relationships so that we don't necessarily have to do everything all the time, and we can really help move those organizations forward.
I love that. I love that thinking about it starting as one because we can't be a large team if we can't sort of figure out how to manage ourselves. So you've had to obviously do that and grow that team from one person. When you made the first hire for comms, or you got approval for that, and then you got to make that first hire, what was that like?
It was really game changing for us.
Yeah.
And it was a superintendent who was unfortunately getting ready to leave and transition into a new adventure. And we were kind of having some conversations about what would be good supports because being a good boss, superintendent really wanted to make sure folks were ready for that next journey and that next piece and challenge that the organization had for us. So we were talking about, in my role, does that mean a different title? Does that mean different responsibilities? And we kind of parlayed that into the conversation of, well, what we really need is some more people to help do some of this work because there's just so much of it to do. And it really became a game changer where we were able to bring in, at the same time, two communication specialists, one to really focus on video, one to be more of a general storyteller and specialist to really help us get stories out. We hired two folks from the local news media, who were fantastic and are still in school comms today, very active
Hmm.
within the SPRAs as well. So great hires and just really changed the dynamic of what we're able to do, when there's, not just one of us, but there's kind of three of us. We're able to specialize in some of those tactics, but we're also then have three times that strategic power of being able to be that partner, be more places at one time, see more things, hear more things. It just is so transformational.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about your story in this is that you started as one, you're growing it. And one of the things that NSPRA does such a great job is advocating for the profession. And my first NSPRA was in DC, and absolutely fantastic experience. Other than it being 100 and I don't know how many degrees, it was a fantastic experience. It was 6 years ago or something. But as I've seen the organization grow, and that was just the one-off meeting that we're having right once a year, but that has been evidenced by how much the profession has grown as well. And so I'd love to get your feedback on how you're seeing the profession of school PR grow and how you're seeing that happen across the country.
We've just seen. I would qualify it as explosive growth in the last 3 or 4 years, and I do think a lot of that. Um, I won't say credit, I will say reasoning, does go to the pandemic, because I think
Yeah.
folks really started to see the need for communication in a different way from so many different perspectives.
Mm.
And I'm just so happy to see that in so many communities, that wasn't just a one time conversation and a one time need, but they saw the power of that and the staying power of that to build those relationships, to build connections with the communities, to build resources. So I think what we're seeing is that so many people recognize that investment pays off, that they're continuing to make those investments. So we've seen just amazing growth within our NSPRA membership. We are up to over 2,800 members, which is more than we've had in many, many, many years.
Yeah.
It is just amazing every time you go to a chapter event, when you come to the national seminar and you say, "Hey, how many of you it's your first SPRA event or it's your first year in school PR?" And those hands that go up, it's just a lot of folks in the room, and it's just bringing such great energy to the field too. And that's the other exciting thing about it is the ideas that are coming in, the energy that's coming in. The other thing I like to talk about with chapters when I go out is about mentoring and that real
Mm.
value about our experienced folks providing that mentorship, but then also being willing to be mentored by those folks that are engaging in mentoring with. It's just such a powerful thing for us to be able to do. And when we have so many new folks coming in, it's just turbocharging it.
Yeah, and Trent, one of the things that I've loved in spending some time with you, and I've seen you do it, is we have those moments where you might be the person who's the only school PR person in your district, right? So they were you back in that time, and they have these moments where they're like, I have no way to share. The fire I just went through, the disaster, we have the wrecks, right, in school PR, and we don't have people oftentimes that share in that camaraderie, and that's been such a valuable component through the NSPRA community, and I've seen you share that multiple times, and yeah, I'd love to hear how you see mentoring helping in those sort of there's dark moments where we really need it most, where you need somebody to call and say this was really rough.
You're absolutely right. That is really one of the foundational things about NSPRA, about our state SPRAs, is that networking of support that really gets developed, because it is just so uplifting when you can go into the room and folks understand what you do, and they
Mm.
understand the challenges you go through, and some of the nightmares you get to experience, because
Yeah,
we get to live some trauma from time to time.
sure.
We get to help support our communities through trauma from time to time. So it's not always an easy job. And having people who understand that and can be there for you, it absolutely is uplifting. And when you talk about that mentoring relationship, having folks who have that shared experience to be able to bring to the table, when you have somebody who's perhaps had 3 or 4 of those and can reflect on the perspective when you're having a hard time, um, that can be very uplifting for you to just be able to give yourself some space and grace to say, okay, this is not the end of the world. This is not just me. This is not just my community. Um, and then feel a little bit better and be able to kind of regroup. So it's really foundational for what we do in school public relations to support each other, is to form those connections.
Well, I have to imagine that the long-term thinking of is sort of lost sometimes when you're in your first year in a school PR job, where you're able to come in and say, "Actually, I remember that 5 years ago. I remember that 10 years ago, and here's how that worked out over time." Turns out boards change. Turns out leadership changes. We'll get there.
Yeah, it is. It's as much as you think, the longer you've been in the job, as much as you may think that, okay, well, now I have seen it all, or how much more
Yeah.
could there be? There's always something else. The dynamic change, the personalities change. So never will you catch me saying that, oh, I didn't think that could happen, because whether it be clowns and clown threats, or pandemics,
Oh.
or um, X, Y, or Z. There's just something you just did not think of, and it's right around the corner. And that's one of the great things about school PR people, is
Mm.
we're adaptable. we take those skill sets and we apply them to the situation, and we take that strategy and we help find the answer. So that's what we're built for.
Yeah, yeah. I think resilience is one of the words that's been used a lot lately in that SPRA community, and it certainly holds true. Trent, we're going to get to be together. I'm sure at some state functions, but also you've got a big summit coming up, and it's in a really cool destination. I'd love to hear what you've got in store for us.
We are so excited. I know the Washington chapter is super excited, but I think we're also excited to be in Seattle this year for the NSPRA National Seminar in July. It is going to be so amazing. I've never seen the hotels sell out as fast as they have for a seminar. So that has just been off the charts. Our attendance is trending just as high as it has the last few years, and we've been setting records every year for the last few years. So it looks like we're going to have another record-breaking crowd, most likely. So we're going to have lots of folks there to share with each other. And like we do every year, we went back through the evaluations. Staff has went back through those evaluations. They're changing things up here and there to kind of nip and tuck and kind of see what they can do better. Puppy Palooza will be back for all of those who love Puppy Palooza in St. Louis. So if you're looking for a puppy, come ready to adopt and take one home. A couple of folks did that last year.
I think Barbara was one of the ones that brought one home, didn't she?
Barbara Hunter, the executive director of NSPRA, fell in love and went back and picked up a pup and is now a mom to a pup. Yeah. So lots of great stuff going on there. We are carving out some time for the state chapters to do meet and greets and events on that Sunday evening before the opening night reception. So what has historically been that diversity and equity mixer time is going to be open for those state chapters. That diversity and equity mixer event is going to be moved to a breakfast event. So we're still investing in that as well. But again, just kind of mixing things up a little bit here and there. But going to have lots of folks from throughout the country coming in, ready to learn, ready to engage, and ready to build those relationships.
Cool. No, I love seeing the change and evolution and growth of the organization and really seeing the advocacy for the position and for that role. Love to see your leadership there. As you're traveling around the country, are there some things that you're advising school PR people to be thinking about doing? Is there some change that you're trying to advocate for the profession and the industry?
Kind of two pieces I'm really encouraging folks to think about. One is certainly making sure that they find the right way for them to be involved in supporting the industry. One of the reasons I decided to run for NSPRA president-elect was because as we kind of came out of the pandemic and we were hiring some new team members here, the experience they were getting in professional development and growth just wasn't what it had been before. But I'd seen that NSPRA was really investing in its strategic plan, some of the work that was going on there. I thought was important work. And I wanted to say, hey, I need to be part of helping support that and making sure that continues because folks need that and they need it probably more now than ever. So that's part of the conversation I like to have with folks is whether it's at your state level, whether it's just local level, whether it's just making sure you're part of some webinars, whatever it is for you, make sure that you're contributing to yourself and to those around you in the profession because that is so important. The other conversation I really like to have is really being reflective about how we're being conscious of our efforts to be inclusive and create belonging within our organizations, and making sure that it's not just lip service, that we're being intentional about it, and that we are holding ourselves accountable to it. Because for a lot of us, we come from, certainly when we talk about professions and getting together every once in a while, it does lean towards a culture of nice. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves hard questions as well. How are we doing recruitments? How are we encouraging people to be involved? When people step forward to be involved, what does that look like for everybody who may be coming from different experiences? And are we making sure that we're removing barriers for people to participate rather than creating barriers for people to participate? And I think that's just an important question for us to reflect on and continue to grow and develop as we make sure that we're reaching out to everybody and bringing more folks into the profession.
Fantastic. No, I love your passion for mentorship, for growth, and then obviously that inclusivity component that is really raising the tide, not just for those people who are already connected, right? But really bringing new folks into the fold. That's a fantastic opportunity. I think when we think of the role of schools, right? Like you're embracing the role that a school in general should play, and that's mirrored in the organization. So I appreciate that commitment. It seems like it fits in a lot of ways. Um, cool. Well, Trent, it's great to catch up with you. Understand a little bit about how you're affecting the industry, and I'm really looking forward to being with you in Seattle, Bellevue, wherever else we sort of like end up in the Northwest there. And really, really commend you and all of the state chapter presidents also that we get to be with there to see how they're leading. And that President Summit was inspiring too, to see the way that I think NSPRA and you specifically are challenging those individual presidents to lead on a state level. So I'm sure you're seeing some fruit already from some of that.
We are, President Summit is one of the best things I think NSPRA has probably instituted in the last few years. And we just get such rave reviews from everybody who comes and participates in that. And it is just such a great way to develop our chapters and support them in their development. So it's fantastic. And it couldn't go on without the support of sponsors like Class Intercom and those other folks who were there. So it is certainly a village that puts it on. And the results are just phenomenal. So we couldn't be more pleased with that.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thank you. And thanks for being a friend and for an advocate for the industry. Trent, it's been great to have you on the podcast, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.